I'm too nostalgic, I'll admit it.
We graduated 4 months ago. What can you possibly be nostalgic for?
I'm nostalgic for conversations I had yesterday. I've begun reminiscing events before they even occur. I'm reminiscing this right now. I can't go to the bar because I've already looked back in it in my memory, and I didn't have a good time.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time to get the band back together and talk about some classic comic books. This time we're going back to the Cape Crusader himself, Batman. We've got a story that's going in between Batman and Detective Comics, all written by Doug Moench. We got Gene Colan, Don Newton on art, depending on if you're reading Batman or Detective Comics. We're going Detective Comics 532 through 535, although we are dropping issue 533 just so we can contain the whole story here. And then Batman issues 366 through 368, all released between November 1983 and 1984. And this is the first appearance of Jason Todd as Robin. This is a really cool story. When people think about Jason Todd as Robin, you think about Death in the Family, you think about Under the Red Hood. I'm shocked that this isn't right up there with him. The quality is absolutely there, but people don't really talk about that. But we're going to talk about it, obviously, here with me. As always, is award-winning comic book editor, writer, Joe Corallo. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing much better now. And we've also got the voice of the voiceless, the man so cool they call him the breed, the comic book hoarder himself, Eric Breen. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Oh, you're going to be doing better. I know you want to talk about this. This is good stuff. So 1984, that would have been primetime Breen, weekly comic book read.
Yeah, so yeah, stop off, get the 12-pack, get the comics, and it's good to go.
Absolutely. So, when Jason Todd is introduced, there is, at least initially, there's some pushback that he's too similar to Dick Grayson. Was that your impression when you first met Jason Todd? And then it kind of became apparent that he was going to take over the mantle of Robin eventually?
When they introduced him, the first thing, he did seem like a carbon copy. And that maybe, to your point about this storyline might have been forgotten because after the Crisis, when they reworked his origin, they changed it to make him more of a hood. Because in this one, he's, it was very similar even to the circus parents, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And this is the second time around, he met him when he was trying to steal the hubcaps off the Batmobile. So, but that shouldn't take away from this story in particular, because I said this is where they started to give him, some character.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously, Joe, the importance of the Robins to the Batman characters can't be understated. Robin has essentially been there as long as Batman. And we had Dick Grayson taking over as the leader of the Teen Titans. It was time for him to move on. Obviously, he's going to be taking on the mantle of Nightwing pretty soon. And it was time for a young sidekick to step into the Robin mantle here. November 1983 and February 1984, pretty big time in comic books.
Yeah. People
mostly think about Marvel. We've talked about this era a lot here when we've done retrospectives. But DC has got a lot of things going. Is this the forgotten era of Batman perfection that people just overlook because they have to wait till Frank Miller and stuff or more of his work?
But and we'll get into it when we talk about this, but the run-ins with characters that we're going to be seeing, like Joker, Poison Ivy, Crazy Quilt, these are, darker versions than people experienced, 50s and 60s and whatnot. These, if you swap some things out, especially how Doug writes and the narrative and all of that he strings together through these stories, it's not that dissimilar from what Frank Miller did with the character. I think because, and I'm not trying to take away from The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, but I feel like those stories are, tend to be both over and underappreciated for what they did, whereas these stories that the issues we're going to be talking about today, I think if more people were familiar with this era, they'd understand that what Frank Miller did was a logical conclusion, and moving forward, it wasn't this giant leap and seismic change that people
There's
act
a natural
like it does
evolution
today.
of the character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is a pretty groundbreaking stuff here. Doug Moench is well known and well respected, but you don't often hear him up there with maybe the names of like a Denny O'Neil or a Marv Wolfman, George Perez, your Alan Moore, obviously Frank Miller's, but it feels like he should be getting a little bit more love than he does.
He absolutely should. He also, if he didn't write more Batman than anyone, if he's not the person who wrote the most appearances of Batman between Batman and Detective Comics, like the main books, then he's the second most. I mean, if you look through because he was on this for close to 4 years or before Crisis, and then he had a long run after Crisis on the book. He'd be off it for a little bit and come back. So, I mean, it's hard to think of someone who's written the character more.
That's really crazy, Braid. What are your thoughts on Doug Moench? Is he somebody that's been lost to time that maybe people should be discovering a little bit more?
Well, it's been a while since his name's been out there, but I think there's a chance he's about to get some sort of recognition again, because the Moon Knight series that's coming, people will naturally gravitate towards finding classic Moon Knight stories. Mm-hmm. And he wrote the 38 issue run in the early 80s that is very well thought of, and that should remind people of how good of a writer he was. And as far as this era goes, I said between he and I know Conway wrote some of the stuff in this time. I said this is as good as Batman as ever was, in my opinion. Yeah. And where all the other characters got noticeably more interesting post-Crisis, Batman already was.
Yeah.
He's the least affected by the Crisis because he's the one they're like, he doesn't need to be fixed. He's already kind of there. Joe, is there anything historically speaking that we need to hit on here? Because we've kind of really worked in this era of comic book writing quite a few times on the retrospective.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot of that. Marv Wolfman and Gil Kane are on Action Comics at this point. We'll get into more of the details here, but this is in Titans. This is like the lead up to the Judas contract, and
absolutely,
Dick Grayson is almost at the point where he's going to be Nightwing. So we get that lead up. When you go over to, Marvel, I think one thing that was going on around here that we haven't talked about in different retrospectives that I think some of the listeners will find important is Kool-Aid Man had a comic through Marvel at this point, written by Jim Salicrup.
I would absolutely read some Kool-Aid Man. That sounds perfection.
Right, but yeah, I mean, we're well on the way in a lot of stuff. This is a big the X-Men and the Micronauts crossower happens during this.
Beautiful.
What was it? I'm trying to think. We're in Byrne's era of Fantastic Four. I think he's also, he's writing The Thing at this point as well. And I think Alpha Flight is really stretched thin at this point. He's a popular guy, but similarly, like we've talked about before, we're on Jam DeMatteis on Cap and Denny O'Neil on Iron Man and things like that. This is during Roger Stern's amazing Spider-Man run. I think one of the last retrospectives he was still just on Spectacular, but at this point he's on Amazing. So I believe it's him and John Romita Jr. on Amazing at this point. Close to not finishing the Hobgoblin story because it kind of builds up and then he's off the book before he really wraps that up cleanly. But Tom DeFalco kind of runs with it after that. But yeah, no, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. You know, I don't think we're gonna top Kool-Aid Man, but one of the other things too, I think this is around the first time we're seeing comics written by Christopher Priest, because I think this is during the Falcon miniseries. That was, I think, if it wasn't his Marvel writing debut, it was close to it.
Very nice. So obviously, he would have been. Oh my goodness, I can't remember his name before he changed.
Jim Owsley.
There we go. Yes.
Jim Owsley, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Let's get into Detective Comics 532, and this will be, we're gonna get the very first appearance of Jason Todd as Robin in Batman 366. So this is all building up to it. This is called Laugh Kill Laugh. Doug Moench and Gene Colan on art. And all right, Doug, so this is great. This is my favorite version of Joker. The new Joker that we have is far too motivated. He's far too calculating. He plans for everything. I like weird, crazy, grandiose, random scheme Joker that does the weirdest stuff in the history of the world. And that's what we're getting here. And then Batman's going along with it. He gets himself captured. I believe they're in Guatemala. He has to get himself captured by the Joker so he can find the location of Vicki Vale. And along the way, he learns that Joker is going to take over Guatemala. And this is the kicker breed, because he's going to turn it into an enormous, deadly amusement park. Now that is the Joker I love.
Yeah, but before he does that, he has to turn two groups of guerrilla fighters against each other, and he's got a plan for that. And he's going to come in and pick up all the pieces, and that's right, set up Joker Land. Fun for the kiddies.
You know I love arcade too, so this was right in there with like an arcade style play too. Let's make the deadliest amusement park of all times.
Yes.
Because why not?
It's the Joker. It fits like his MO at the time. And like I said, this is my version of the Joker.
Well, and you get the introduction right at the beginning when the one guy, one of the things, if you read enough of these stories, that henchmen never learn is you never question the Joker. Yeah. Bad things happen. Remember we did Strange Apparitions when the guy's talking to him and he tells him to mind his own business as he throws him out in front of a bus. Mm-hmm. This time the poor guy gets the Jack in the Box to the head. So,
oh yeah.
And then you have the guy a little later. Oh, Joker. And then he looks at the guy's body and goes, never mind. So,
no, it's great. And this is, we actually get some Vicki Vale in these comics, a character who, post-crisis, they've never really done too much with in a significant way. But, she was really important in this time. And unlike a lot of other Batman stories that are up there, there's, the love interest is tied up and endangered, and Batman has to save her.
Absolutely. Before we see that, we do see in Gotham that Bullock, he's not listening to Mayor Hill anymore because Jim Gordon, I guess, is in a coma due to whatever her instructions were. We also get a little catch up on Alfred. His daughter, Julia, is arrived and is starting to learn about her past and who her father is. That gets us into this other plot by Joker. And I guess he's got an enormous train set. And he's got Vicki Vale tied to the tracks, but he's also bound Batman to the train itself. And he breaks free just in time to free Vicki and uses the train to dispatch Joker's thugs. And all mayhem breaks loose here, Joe. But the hideout in Guatemala starts collapsing as they escape. Vicki goes a little off script here and starts shooting people with guns. Not really a Batman thing, but she's pretty upset. And then we see inside of the collapsed building, Joker's there laughing and having a good time.
Oh yeah, no, he's having a grand old time. He's well, this is the interesting part of this plan and everything that's going on is Joker just wants chaos. And as we see developing in this story, you get the point where, he's just laughing maniacally and having a great time because all he wants to do is cause chaos and mischief here. He doesn't quite care. Like, that's his goal. There is no goal of I'm going to be supreme dictator. I'm going to take over the world. he's good with the chaos. As long as people are out there like murdering each other and destroying things, as far as he's concerned, he's won. So
I always get the feeling that he's happy. He really wants to see how far he can go with Batman before he fails. Like, hey, I've got this one didn't work. Let me see if I can do something crazier next time and really throw it. And so you get the ideas become more grand and just weird, but it just fits the character. It's just a game to it. Whereas, Batman's fighting tooth and nail, for life and death.
Oh yeah, no, it's it's really great. It's just that, and just all the stuff. Saving Vicki being all like, there to take pictures, to shoot people if she has to she's very much in that, like, she's sort of become this hybrid Lois Lane, Peter Parker kind of character of being this, like, a news photographer and all of that. And she's going to be there for the story. And, you better not tell her to stay behind kind of character.
Yeah. That brings us into Batman 366. Notice the Joker is wild, Doug Moench, with Don Newton on art. And this will be the first appearance of Jason Todd as Robin. And we get a little foreshadowing for that, Breen, as we're in Wayne Manor. Jason Todd discovers Dick Grayson's old room. And wouldn't you know it, he finds what appears to be the Robin uniform. Well, then we see in Guatemala, Batman and Vicki are heading to the nearest town, only to discover that Joker has started a conflict between the military and some rebels, as you mentioned earlier. And then we get a little catch up on Alfred learning that Julia is investigating the death of her adopted father. And he might want to help her out with that. So we get a little bit of catch up here like you'd want. But the big news is Jason Todd has discovered something he wasn't meant to see.
Yeah, so one of the things that makes this story so good is, as Joe pointed out, is the subplots that we're running through. Yes, kids, comics used to have subplots. And to me, something almost as important as Jason Todd becoming Robin was Bullock's evolution, because he'd been brought in as a stooge of Hamilton Hill to basically undermine Commissioner Gordon. And for a while, he was a straight up bad guy, but he he changed legit. And this storyline is, as I said, as we see in this very issue, where he basically turns on Hill. And because, he has developed a legitimate respect for Jim Gordon that would evolve over the years into him becoming his most trusted lieutenant. And I didn't want that to get glossed over in this story, because this is where it all starts. And that actually remained after the crisis, which I'm glad they didn't, wipe out the character development that was planted here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
And we can't gloss over the cover of this issue too. This is a Walt Simonson cover, and it's gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All the covers on these are great. You get the first one, it's Batman's like tied up on the railroad tracks. It's great. Yeah. So the covers from these eras are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'd have shown that one, but it's in my Joker omnibus and I can't lift it anymore.
So you were having to go between omnibuses to read this story, Joe? Or
yeah, because you can't. It's not collected. It sucks that it's not collected. Yeah,
it seems like an important enough story. The first appearance of Jason Todd as Robin, that they will be able to collect this. Unfortunately, they haven't. Yeah. Hopefully, they do soon. But we'll get back to the story here, Joe. Batman and Vicki are warning the military and the rebels of Joker's plot before Joker arrives with his thugs, and they're attacking him. I love using Joker copters. Of course they are. Joker eventually starts to retreat back to his headquarters with Batman in pursuit. When he arrives back at the HQ, Batman has the military. They've got the rebels in tow, and he's going after the Joker himself as the rebels and the military take on the thugs and try to keep them at bay.
Yeah, and during all this, Batman ends up talking with these rebels, and it's very interesting because the way this is all being done, Batman is very much like, I am not making a judgment call here. I don't know, like, whether it's the government or the rebels are right, whatever it is, but I want you to know what's actually happening is that, Joker is planning to get you to groups to fight each other. And it's interesting, like that this era handles the sort of politics in a way you kind of wish you'd see more in comics, where it's like it is political. It is political to have a story about rebels, trying to take out a general who's running a country kind of thing. But you have these characters who are aware of that, and they're not inserting their own politics into these situations. It's like Batman's here for a purpose, and he's not here to help
get involved.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm here because Joker's my responsibility, and I need to stop him, and this is what he's doing. You all are got to figure your own stuff out, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. That brings us up to the kind of the end of the story here, Breed, where Joker apparently he's scaled a pyramid and he's laid a trap to where he's had enough of Batman. He wants to finally kill him, and I guess he's set up like a big machine gun, I think. And Batman is kind of scaling up the pyramid, and he's kind of coming into what would be the kill zone. And as that happened, Robin arrives, but there is no Robin because he's not with Batman. He's on the Teen Titans, but Robin makes it. The dynamic duo are working together. They make short work of Joker. Vicki Vale gets exclusive pictures of the reunion of Batman and Robin, but they have to have a little heart-to-heart in private, Breed, because Batman's like, what the hell are you? Who are you? What are you doing here?
Well, okay, if you remember earlier in the story, the Joker talks about how his relationship with Batman, he goes, I've had chances to kill you that I didn't take. I've even had chances to find out who you are, but I don't want to know. Because it's all about the game, more or less. Mm-hmm. Well, apparently he gets aggravated enough to where and Batman even said, he goes, wow, he's finally reached the point where he wants to kill me. And he goes, well, maybe with my Batarang, I can. He goes, oh, that's like about a 1 in 1,000 chance. He's running the numbers in his head. And then, here comes Robin, knocks him off, and, basically, deals with the Joker.
They shit him.
Yeah, and then he holds him for long for Batman to get there and knock him out.
Yeah.
And then they stared at each other. His explanation, how he found the costume, he dyed his hair, he figured out where he was, hit Bruce's cash drawer and found his way there. Now
he's resourceful.
This kid's got a little detective in him. So, and then, and I love the ending where Batman says, basically goes, it's one thing for you to become my new partner, but it's another to take another man's identity. He goes, that I will not allow. So that's the drama set up for what's coming next in the story. And I thought that was an interesting.
He can be a sidekick, but he can't become Robin because Robin already exists. He's on the Titans.
Yeah. So that's, that I thought that was a great ending for that particular story arc.
Yeah, it does, like, reading this again, too, it makes you think, like, again, when it comes to Crisis and the changes they made to Batman after this, even though they were minor, it does feel like a missed opportunity that they didn't keep a little more of the stuff with Jason Todd, because it all would have been more poetic if the first villain he fought is the one who killed him. Like that,
this one he took out.
Yeah. Like it would have been interesting to be like, that was like Joker's revenge was like, I actually finally was at a point where I was going to kill Batman and I could have, and you stopped me. And for him to then kill, like it just would have added like that little more to it.
Or as crazy as the Joker is, you could have said, and I want to thank you for that, because if I had, I would have lost my best pal and,
yes, actually,
partner, but you did it. So I got to do this.
Someone's got to die. I got to still have to kill somebody. I don't want to lose my rep.
100%, Breen. That's absolutely right.
So we're going to skip Detective Comics 533 because it more deals with the Jim Gordon health thing where he's in a coma and he kind of comes out of it. Otherwise, this retrospective would be too long. We're going to get right back to Batman 367, the Green Ghost of Gotham. Doug mentioned Don Newton once again. And this one's pretty interesting here, Joe. We see seeds being released from this abandoned house in Crime Alley. They land in the Gotham River, and they start transforming at the break of dawn. Later, we see Batman and Robin getting ready to go out on their first test patrol. Not really Robin yet. I'm sorry. It's Batman and Jason Todd going on test patrol. And the seeds evolve into these green hulking beasts that are destroying, monsters that are destroying Gotham. Batman and Jason Todd end up, they kind of fight them. They do not win, but they do get a tissue sample. And they were able to discover that it's the result of experimentation. But you see the green creatures end up coming to this house where we got Poison Ivy and her new protege, accomplice, Dr. Is it Linier?
I think
We'll
it's
go with
something
that,
like
'cause-
1 year.
Yeah.
I
1
think
year,
it
yeah.
is.
Mhm.
So that's the beginning. We got Poison Ivy's here. The new scheme.
Yeah, we go right from these are some heavy hitters. We go from Joker, now we're at Poison Ivy. It's just a no holds barred, and this is they are kind of following up. There was in the Jerry Conway's run where she had sort of used her plant powers to take over the board and was able to funnel money out of there because they couldn't resist her. And so there's a lot of references to that in this story of them being like, don't worry, because of last time the bank was able to flag this so we could stop certain things. So that's all in reference to that. But again, it's part of what makes this whole era so great is that there is that connection. There is stuff where it's like, a couple of years later, a villain will come back and they're referencing what they did the last time. You love that stuff.
Yeah, it's always smart to leave a little meat on the bone on the stories, some things that you can come back and explore further later on. And so mentioning that, we're talking about subplots here, Bree. We've got Alfred. He's leaving Gotham because he's going to Montreal with his daughter. We've got Gordon returning to work, obviously, after they kind of wrap that up in Detective Comics 533. Vicki Vale is returning, hoping that she can rekindle her relationship with Bruce Wayne. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But then the Wayne Enterprises board, as Joe's alluding to there, they start receiving invitations to go to Exotica Spa. Bruce and Lucius are like, no. But several other of the board members actually do go. And it turns out Poison Ivy is not only providing them with stress reliever treatment, she's gassing them and they're exiting with souvenir plants. That can't be good.
No, I'm guessing that that's her plan is that leads to them turning over the fortune that she wasn't able to get the first time. But so what makes this another interesting story is we also get a Poison Ivy that's far more diabolical even than any we'd seen to this point.
Yeah.
So definitely the stakes are being raised across the Bat books here at this point.
And if you thought Poison Ivy looked skimpy when Jim Lee was drawing her in Hush, Don Newton gives Jim Lee a run for his money here with the outfit that Poison Ivy's in for this story.
Absolutely. They just need to make a poster of that bad boy. Put it on the bed. So to follow up on this, Lucius tells Bruce about what the board has done. So Bruce decides he needs to investigate. He realizes almost immediately that this is likely Poison Ivy behind this. He and Batman and Jason Todd go to the abandoned house, and they sneak into Ivy's lab. They are attacked by the monsters. Robin swoops in to help after Jason swoops in for help after Batman calls for help. He almost dies in the process, Joe. This always happens with the new Robin. They've got to almost die a couple of times. Ivy ends up setting this abandoned house on fire to escape, destroying the monsters that are in the house. But they are able to capture Dr. Linier. And but here's the big thing, Joe. When Bruce called out for help, he didn't call out for Jason. He called out for Robin, the mantle which Batman said that he couldn't take. And
it really builds it up and makes all this interesting. There's drama, there's stakes. I also think it was very nice of Poison Ivy to put pants on before Batman got there. She does that, but as you're going through this story, again, like Don Newton, is such a great artist. There's a reason he became the main Batman artist. We lost him far too young. I think by the end of '84, I think that was kind of it. I know he passed away around then. Again, far too young. Him and Gene Colan too. I mean, Gene Colan was Marvel for a long time before he came over to do this, but these books look fantastic, and it really leans into the noir feel you want in a Batman book. And yeah, that stuff where the Robin has to almost die does become like a trope, but it becomes a trope because of this. This is the first time in terms of the main continuity. It's not, an Elseworld. It's not a one-off story. It's not like something like that. In terms of like the back continuity, this is the first time we're getting a new Robin, more or less. So this is what really sets that up. And I think it's important because now we're in an age where you can't go to the shop on Wednesday without finding out that a new Robin or Batgirl or something's been created. This is the first time.
This is like 40 years.
Yeah, it was over 40 years before this happened. And in the Bronze Age, like early 70s is when Robin goes off to college, and he's no longer the boy wonder. He's more like the teen wonder, and they change that up because they make it a big deal that the boy wonder is back. Because you have this, Robin coming about. So it's interesting thinking about this. What was Glenn Greenberg, who Perch I interviewed a while back, is a Marvel editor, but he's a big Batman fan growing up, and he described all the first 40 or so years of Batman, the major turning points in that book in terms of just changing the book was the introduction of Robin and Robin goes to college. That's so quaint when you think of the constant, change to the status quo that we deal with today.
Absolutely. This is constant churning out and having to change everything. That brings us into Detective Comics 534 Brambles. Doug Moench, Gene Colan back on art as we're getting into Detective Comics again. Once again, Eric Breen. And we see several of the Wayne Enterprises executives have been hypnotized by Ivy. And we get into the Detective Gordon has told Bruce that he cannot keep Dr. Leininger much longer due to a lack of evidence. Bruce is wanting to file charges, like as Bruce Wayne, not Batman, to keep a hold of that person. So he's already at the jail. We've got Jason Todd out looking for Ivy, but to no avail. And that's because Ivy has the execs in her underground lair at this point, and she's extracting their brainwaves and placing them into plant monsters, Breen. Diabolical.
Dangerous grief, Sammy. Well, like I said, the last time she was around, she was after the money. Now she's after. Yeah, I said this is like a homicidal version of Poison Ivy that we really hadn't gotten to this extent until now. So that's why it's that much more important to get the information they need out of Leininger so they can find her and stop her.
And that character is already like hinted at because Bruce actually calls Lucius Fox like, "What the hell's going on?" And then when that's going on, and he finds out about the execs, Leininger like says something. That basically, it says like the Ivy's plan has started. Yep. Yeah, so it's a pretty good forewarning there. Then we get Batman and Jason Todd have returned to the abandoned house. Joe Corallo. They find a hole. Why would you have a hole to your hideout at the abandoned house that you burnt down? What are you thinking? It turns out they go into the hole. Poison Ivy has captured Jason as Batman is fighting off Plant Man. And, of course, she's a villain. So Ivy explains that she's using the execs as revenge for her past failures and is going to use nature to destroy Gotham and rebuild anew. But Jason is a clever fox, Joe. He turns the table on Ivy, forces her to call off the monsters, and then knocks her unconscious. which Bruce was not altogether all that happy. He thought he might have went a little bit too far on that one. But he does decide that this is a big moment, that Jason Todd is absolutely ready to be the new sidekick of Batman, but he needs a new hero nickname, Joe.
Yeah. And they list off a few there. They're trying to figure that out. But, I mean, what's so interesting here is, the last story we did with Joker. Joker was pushed to the point in that moment he was finally ready to kill Batman. This story with Poison Ivy has never been deadlier.
She's willing to destroy the whole city.
Yeah, the entire city. The stuff going on with Gordon. Those thugs, they were ready to really kill Gordon. Like the stakes are ramping up and they're building up what's going on in these Batman titles, but it all feels natural. It's not a stunt. It's not, none of these issues when you pick them up had a big thing like, Gotham will never be the same. Pick up this collector's issue to find none of that. It's just, you're telling a story, and if you tell a good story, that's what keeps it going. And we also get that moment, which, they'll use later on, is in building up Jason and trying to separate him a bit from Dick Grayson. When Dick Grayson was younger,
go a little too far.
He is ready to strangle Poison Ivy to death. And she does the whole bit like, you wouldn't dare, and he just yanks it until she'll stop. And I think some people, again, they forget that this stuff was going on before Frank Miller came and did what he did in Batman. This is in that same ballpark in terms of ramping up the stakes and the brutality in the comic, but it does it in a way where it all fits and you just go with it as the reader.
Absolutely. We're getting a crescendo here, and we're getting us into Batman 368, A Revenge of Rainbows. Almost sounds like a George R.R. Martin novel. Maybe with it is a Song of Ice and Fire. We got Doug Moench, Don Newton, and we have Dick Grayson returns to the Batcave, Breen. Wonderful seeing Dick. Obviously, he was leading the Teen Titans at this time. And he interrupts Bruce and Jason as they're trying to discover the new nickname that they're going to give him as a sidekick. Dick explains that he can no longer be Robin as the leader of the Teen Titans, and he has seen that Batman and what they assumed was Robin took down the Joker. He put two and two together, and he came there to suggest giving the mantle and the name over to Jason, who was very excited about this. They agreed to it. Jason obviously puts on the uniform to take over the role of Robin. We get a really cool moment between Batman and Dick as they kind of I don't know. There's just something there between the two. And then I like when Batman asks him, like, "What's your new name going to be?" And he's like, "I don't know."
Yeah, there's the conversation they have, and Robin and Dick says, "You're not taking this. I am giving it to you."
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce says, "You've just received a great honor, Jason." And then I say, I love the panel where he goes, where Dick, where he goes, we thanks Dick for all he's done, and Dick can't respond because he's too choked up. Because because if you've been reading all these years from like the mid '70s to this point, their relationship had frayed, hell, almost fractured, but at the end of the day, they are the two most important people to each other. Yeah. And this scene really plays that out, and I said, I love where Jason comes in for the first time, but, in the Robin outfit, I probably would have asked for long pants. I would have made that change, but
it could have been summer, make it balmy, and but also I think an important thing here is also the way this is done is classy. Dick Grayson doesn't show up and go, wow, Jason, I saw what you were doing and you were better than me as a kid and you're going to be a better Robin than I was, followed by all the Teen Titans coming out being like, yeah, you're so good. We're envious about how great you are. And then Superman flies in and goes, I couldn't ask for a better sidekick than you. In fact, you should be wearing this S, and here, put that S on too. And then Wonder Woman comes and goes like, you're more worthy of this lasso than me. And it's none of that. It's just,
and they all pose for selfies.
It's just, like the way Dick is doing this is it's more of like a courtesy, and I'm not using this anyway, and you should use it. Like, it's still polite, and he's giving him his like approval, but it's done in like a grounded, realistic way, and not like this like over the top way to try to sell it to the audience.
I've outgrown Robin. It's time for me to do my own thing, and I think you deserve it, since you're working together.
It's a passing of the torch. And they said it was 45 years of Dick Grayson as Robin being passed to a new kid, and that had weight the first time it was done. And you could also say the second time it was done, but as Joe pointed out, it's lost all its meaning now because it really is every month now.
Yeah. That brings us in. So this is kind of some things that you would expect from a character of Jason's age and what the responsibility he's taken on. He's worried that the public might not appreciate him as a new Robin, and Batman has to reassure him. He's like, we're going to live up to the Batman and Robin legacy, and we're going to do it together. It's not really about what the public thinks of you. It's about helping them out. And then we see this. Well, in Montreal, we know that Alfred and Julia, they finally learned that her adoptive father was murdered as they investigate that homicide. Then we get into this. We get into Gotham. Crazy Quilt has hired a scientist to create a new helmet to allow him to see because Robin, Dick Grayson, has blinded him years earlier. And he kills the scientist that creates the helmet, but he's also realized that Robin has returned to Gotham, and he wants to kill him, even though it's not the same Robin. He doesn't know.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Crazy Quilt. What a great name for a villain.
Crazy Quilt's it's a great name for a villain, and also, again, it's all really well thought out. You don't like, if you're trying to build this character up over time, you don't want Jason Todd Robin to have to go through and defeat a top rogue in the gallery. He's got to work up to that. It's like, it's, you're not dealing with, something that's a little more threatening, like a Scarecrow or Two-Face or something like that right out the gate. Mr. Freeze, a Catwoman. It's like, no, you're a Ra's al Ghul, like, forget that. But, you're dealing with Crazy Quilt. And that it all feels intentional, and it feels like there's a lot of thought going into this long term, and you kind of miss that in some comics that come out today.
It also establishes the fact that the Robin, he's already got his own enemies, and it doesn't matter whether it's Jason Todd or Dick Grayson that's underneath the mantle. While he's inherited the responsibility of being Batman's sidekick, he's also inherited all those enemies and the past that Dick Grayson had put into the costume with him. And he'll have to accept that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that was all done very good. And Eric, we get Jason. Once again, he's concerned that people aren't going to recognize him as the new Robin. It turns out it would probably be good if they recognize he wasn't the old Robin, as they realize Crazy Quilt is looking for revenge. And this is pretty stupid, Breen. Batman gets distracted by lights. He's like, you stay here. I'm going to go look at the lights. He goes to look at the lights, and wouldn't you know it, Crazy Quilt comes out from behind him to attack Jason. And of course, Batman realizes he's been duped. He returns to find his new Robin, the young boy, severely beaten and assumed dead, Breen. Did he lose the boy the first night out on the job?
Yeah, that's little bit of a stretch that Batman would do that. But there's a really good scene earlier in the issue where, and it's so fitting, where Jason, one of the things he's concerned about is no one knowing it's him doing all these great things. because he's behaving like a regular kid. That it's like, what does a little kid do when he hits his first home run in knot hole? He calls grandpa. It's basically kind of like that. And Batman goes, and Bruce goes, yeah, I still get like that sometimes, but the longer I do it, the more I realize it's less important. Yeah, I know what I'm doing, and basically, yeah, that's enough. And I thought that was a great human moment. And
it's actually pretty smart to take Alfred out of the equation, because he would probably object to this, be like, he's not ready to go out quite yet, Bruce.
Yeah,
can we ease him into the role? But he's off doing his own thing, so it's kind of Bruce flying solo with the kid.
And the other thing, again, to this, how good the story is, Crazy Quilt is now homicidal.
Yeah.
I mean, how you look at this guy, and the fact that you take him seriously is a testament to how good Doug Moench's writing is in the story, because, I mean, I'm not saying he's the smartest villain ever, because if I were blind as a bat and a guy came up with a helmet that let me see, I probably don't kill the guy until I know for sure that there's not that it's not gonna stop working after an hour. But it just tells you that. So now Robin's old enemy is willing to kill, and he wants to, while he's developed a taste for it, he wants to kill Robin. So again, raising the stakes, and so he beats him near to death. I think he gets doesn't have time to finish the job, and then Batman shows up
returning.
So that's again another great cliffhanger, which fortunately we only had to wait 2 weeks for, because
absolutely Detective Comics 535, and I love a good pun, Joe.
Yeah,
this is a great name for a comic book. One hole in a quilt of madness.
Yes.
My goodness. That's how you name a comic book.
And it's a phenomenal cover. Detective 535. Oh my God. The just the colors and everything there. Yes. Like, it's such a good cover. Yeah.
Very psychedelic.
Nice. Yeah.
And so this will be the culmination, the final issue of this, the story we're talking about here. Batman almost instantly realizes that Jason is alive. He's not actually dead. He is beaten severely, unfortunately. He takes him back to Wayne Manor. As I mentioned, Alfred's gone. He's helping Julia investigate the murder of her adopted father in Montreal. So he's treating him and everything. And then we also see the continuation of something Breen was talking about earlier. I don't remember if you were alluding to it as well, Joe. But Harvey Bullock, who's been kind of on the straight and narrow, kind of being the best soldier that he can for Gordon as he was hurt, and he's returned. But he's also taking a more ruthless approach. As the stakes in Gotham are raising themselves up and up, Bullock is starting to lose a little bit and becoming a little bit more ruthless in his approach to crime fighting.
Yeah, he's on his way to becoming closer to the Bullock that I think people know more about. He's getting up there, because I think most people know Bullock from Batman the Animated Series, and he's starting to go more in that direction at this point.
Yeah, and that gets us to the next part, Breed. Batman is ready to go on patrol, and he is flabbergasted as Jason is suited up and ready to join him. And he tries talking to him, and he kind of realizes that he's in a trance, and he actually attacks Batman. He kind of leaves him unconscious. Robin ends up walking down the Gotham River. Crazy Quilt and thugs are ready to attack. Fortunately, Batman has recovered. He follows a clue that has been left behind by Jason. He arrives just in time as Robin is kind of holding his own. And we get this interesting part here where Quilt is trying to kill Robin. He's good. He's ready to kill him, but Robin actually has a special device. He reflects his light back on him, which absolutely hypnotizes Quilt, and he instructs him to destroy the helmet before they capture him. So we already see that Jason Todd as Robin is exceptionally resourceful. He can hold his own, and even while he was hypnotized, he was able to kind of think on his feet there.
Yeah, because he mentions in the recap that when Crazy Quilt hypnotized him, he couldn't control his actions, but he forgot to tell him what to do when he wasn't doing his bidding, which gave him the time to go research in the Batcave, come up with the clues that he plans. He He had to knock Bruce out because that was his instructions, but he basically didn't have 24/7. So the free will that he did have allowed him to plant the clues and make it possible for Bruce to find him and save him from Crazy Quilt. So yeah, very resourceful. And I said, and more than ready to be the new Robin.
And that brings us to the end here, Joe. He does recap. He tells them all the stuff that happens, but we have a new Robin. It's been handed over gracefully in an orderly manner from Dick Grayson himself, who has recognized that he's ready to step up to the mantle as Dick Grayson is ready to go on and become Nightwing. Fun story. We get the Joker. We get Poison Ivy. The stakes are being raised. We're seeing, obviously, Gordon almost died. He's made it back. Bullock is going a little bit crazy. Crazy Quilt himself had to return just to remind people that Robin has a few enemies of his own. He survived his first test, and they're ready to rock and roll, Joe.
Yeah, no, it's great, and there's it's paced out really well here in this last issue we're doing. Like there's the bit where Crazy Quilt has the helmet. He has it hanging, and Robin goes to investigate it, and he realizes what's happening too late before Crazy Quilt clubs him in the back of the head, and he's able to recover, and that's when they defeat him. But they really make Crazy Quilt out to be this really ruthless foe that's worth their time, that Robin has to overcome here. Jason Todd is Robin, and then after this, I mean, the months coming ahead from this, I mean, they're dealing with Deadshot, Scarecrow, Mr. Freeze, Penguin, Nocturna. It really ramps up, and it's a lot of crazy stuff going on, fighting top tier villains, and it's just such a great era of Batman.
It's too bad.
Really leads in. Oh God.
No, go ahead.
No, and it really leans into the corrupt political machine in Gotham that I think Englehart planted several years ago when he introduced Boss Thorne. And this one I said added, Hamilton Hill. I can't remember the other guy's name. There's Thorne running around, and Gordon. I think this that's something that has survived to this day, is how corrupt the Gotham City political machine is, in the police department. That you have a good man at the top, but holy crap, is it rotten to the core? And that's what made Bullock's evolution, so interesting, because Bullock started off as part of that machine, breaks free of it, and becomes Gordon's most trusted ally, which I said starts here.
Yeah, and again, that's Steve Englehart, Jerry Conway, Doug Moench doing that. And not to take anything away from Frank Miller, but that was not a Frank Miller invention. And I think a lot of people credit a lot of that stuff to Frank. And there's a lot of stuff in Year One and Dark Knight Returns and all that Frank doesn't get credit for that he should. It's very weird how it all works. But no, a lot of people who aren't as familiar with this era attribute so much of this element, this mood, to Frank, and it's just not the case.
So if people want to go out and read this story, you cannot get it in a collection. You're going to have to get the Batman omnibus and the Detective omnibus and be switching back and forth. You have to get the single issues, right?
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's all on Comixology, so if there's people that like getting it, if you're up for reading it digitally, or these should all be in the DC U app, their unlimited universe version of the app. They should, the DC universe. They should all be in there. Single issues. If you want the stuff leading up to this, grab Strange Apparitions if you can get the trade, or the Tales of the Batman Steve Englehart, which has that story we went over earlier, but that is what builds all this stuff leading up to this. There are 3 hardcovers they put out of Jerry Conway's run that collects the whole thing. if you want to get that stuff, you got to get it fast, because whenever DC puts out a standard sized hardcover, they seem to only do one printing, and then when it's out of print, that's kind of it. And then, the Doug Moench stuff hasn't been collected yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually go back. Maybe not next year, but maybe the year after they'll do it. But if you want some of it in a collection, the Tales of the Batman Gene Colan Volume 2, if you have all the Jerry Conway stuff, has a lot of detective issues after that. Doesn't have much of the Batman issues. So either way, they don't make it easy.
It sucks because this is perfect.
Yeah, it blows my mind that they didn't make this easy to collect, because this is easily one of the best eras of Batman. If this isn't in like your top 3 eras of Batman, it's because you haven't read it.
Or you can do the way we used to do it back before the trades and the omnibuses, and go to your local comic shops. Because I realized Saturday night, I couldn't find, and Wes, you'll appreciate this, I couldn't find my copy of 535. I went through about 20 boxes that they could have been in. It wasn't. So I had to go to a shop to find it. So this was easy to find, and it was inexpensive. But the books that were thrown into the dollar boxes wasn't. So I said this ended up becoming a bit of an expensive endeavor, but that's neither here nor there. But the single issues can be found.
No, but yeah, most of this era isn't too pricey. You might be able to find a lot here or there of the back issues of a chunk of it. What makes it more complicated is it bounces back and forth between Batman and Detective. So you're more likely to get a lot of Batman or a lot of Detective and then try to piece them together. But yeah, it's they don't make it easy.
You're gonna have to work for it, but I'm telling you right now, if you do it, you're gonna feel good about it at the end, because you're gonna get a first-rate Batman story that is gonna blow your socks off. I want to say thank you very much to Eric. Thank you very much to Joe. Next week we'll be talking about Marvel Comics, but it's gonna be hard to top this one. This was, it was hot.
Yeah.